Our newest threat vector is AI hallucinations. I'm not kidding. I'm Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic, and let's dive in. Now, this news is interesting, and it's coming from Cyberscoop. Thank you, Mary Catherine Sullivan and Brett Callow, for writing this up. But if you didn't know, let me give you this scenario. A company wakes up to a news story claiming that they have suffered a major data breach. The details are very specific, they're deeply technical, and they're obviously very concerning. But the breach didn't happen. No systems were compromised. No data was taken. Essentially, a large language model generated the entire story, filling in plausible details from scratch. And before the company can figure out what's going on, a reporter from a reputable news outlet picks up the story, reaches out, and wants a comment from the company. Within hours, the company is drafting statements, it's mobilizing its communications teams to essentially address what is essentially a fictional event. This situation, plus two other cases Cyberscoop discussed, including one that quoted a well-known cybersecurity professional that was never actually interviewed, expose a threat that most organizations really aren't prepared for. AI has the ability to fabricate convincing security incidents from essentially nothing, complete with technical details, named sources, and enough credibility to trigger basically full-on crisis responses. And this is true. Like, I actually had a artificial intelligence write me a story for, I think it was either Forbes or Smerconish, essentially on the 2028 presidential election, and I had it fill in the blanks, and it filled them in convincingly well, including essentially negative reactions from the electorate, everything. I didn't give it any of these prompts. So that's pretty amazing. And any organization that treats this as essentially a theoretical problem or won't happen to them essentially just risks learning the hard way about AI-generated fiction becoming a real-world emergency. This is a huge issue. And if you didn't know, cyber crisis response is basically built on one simple core premise. Something happens, you respond. That's essentially how the fire department works. That's how the police department works, et cetera, et cetera. That's changing, though, because AI systems can now generate, but also amplify and validate claims before security teams for organizations can actually confirm anything. Remember, these things move incredibly fast. Once a narrative enters the ecosystem, it can be ingested into things like threat intelligence feeds, risk scoring platforms, automated workflows, and all of that. So let's say you've got security scorecard and it gets wind that you've had a data breach. It might adjust your risk score. Your insurance company might adjust your risk score when they didn't have a reason to. Fiction basically is becoming signal, but it can also become quote unquote reality, even when it's not. And so for security teams, this creates a new class of false positive, not from the noisy alert, from a misconfigured tool, but a fully formed external narrative that appears credible, right? A hallucinated breach can trigger internal investigations, executive escalation. The executives always pull their hair out over these kinds of things, defensive actions that aren't needed, and on and on and on. Not to mention the time and resources that get diverted towards disproving something that didn't actually happen, right? So much for innocent until proven guilty in this case. On top of this, it can also influence real-world attacker behavior, right? Threat actors can weaponize fabricated breach narratives as pretext. Phishing emails referencing a known incident become believable, especially when the person receiving the email then Googles it and all of a sudden it's in the news and the company is trying to respond as fast as they can, but it's been picked up and spread. Impersonation of IT or incident response teams becomes more effective because the attackers can start reaching out saying, hey, we're in IT, here's a New York Times article, whatever article, that we're going through a breach, I need to reset your password, please give me access. These kinds of things can actually happen. The narrative of this basically false attack becomes part of the attack surface. This is a huge issue. And as we have basically no guardrails, at least in the United States and most of the world, for artificial intelligence governance, we're going to see this essentially spread. And there's no reason why an attacker couldn't go to a large language model and have them actually create a lot of this information with Acme Co. and then do a find and replace on Acme Co. with Microsoft or Google or Facebook or big tech or name your Fortune 100 company. This is a problem. And it's something that we are going to have to essentially adjust to. Teams are going to have to be trained on response. Pre-canned messages will have to go out. But the problem that we have longitudinally with this is that the general public is not going to know who to believe. Remember the concept of the liar's dividend. There are going to be organizations out there that get breached that will simply say this was an AI hallucination. We never were breached when they actually were. In the same way, Elon Musk walked into court years ago basically saying, well, we don't know if the plaintiff actually saw videos of me promising something. Maybe it was artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, the judge and the courts are pretty good at spotting counterfeits, and they didn't see through Elon Musk's obvious lie. But the point being here is that this is a new world, and it's a new attack surface area, and it's a new threat landscape. And all AI has to do is lift its virtual finger and pen an article and essentially get a company into serious trouble. This is huge. I can't understate that enough. And thank you, Cyberscoop, for the primer on this. But quite frankly, this is something we all need to be aware of, and this is something that we need to validate. And so I think we're going to see a lot of movement in this field as this starts to happen. And I think we're going to start to see a lot more false positives. And as somebody who every Sunday does a Breaches of the Week video, I'm deeply concerned that I'm going to be reporting on essentially an AI hallucination that looks and feels real that has been taken by reputable news sources and amplified. That's a problem for everybody, including myself. So best of luck to us, but this is coming. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at Nick AESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, 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 I want to say private, online, and secure. Take care.